Good evening. This is the Traffic and Safety Committee for the Village of Villa Park. It is just 8 o'clock, and we'll start off with roll call.
Cuthbertson,
Yes.
DiTomaso, Flashcamp,
Yes.
Little,
Yes.
McMurray,
Aye.
Carl Timmerman, Karen Timmerman,
Yo.
Wagner,
Here.
Chairperson Pinkos.
Here. Okay. Before we proceed, you know what? I'm just going to ask, we're going to go to item number 3, amendments to agenda. Do we have any amendments? Doesn't look like it. All right, so we'll then move on to public comments on agenda items. But before we go any further, we have a special guest here tonight. We have our new village manager, Mike Rivas. If you want to say anything to anybody, or... But welcome and congratulations again.
Well, thank you, sir. I have nothing prepared. I just want to introduce myself and just say my door is always open. My ears are always open. We're getting a litany of citizen issues and concerns, and we're addressing them one by one. As some people in the audience may know, we're addressing those issues one by one, with being on the right side of what the ordinances are and the laws are moving forward. But the reason I'm doing this is because I love it. I love Villa Park. That's why we're all here, is because we love Villa Park. That's why I'm facing the scrutiny and dealing with a lot of the innuendo and things that are going on. I can't even hear it. When you love something, you're willing to fight for it, and that's what I'm doing. Our goal is to professionalize the Village Hall, add career-minded people that are professionals moving forward, and that search begins yesterday. And that's our goal, get a handle on our finances moving forward, see what our position is, and see where this takes us. I could keep talking all day long, but does anybody have any questions? And if not, if you want to save it for another time, come visit me.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. I'll get out of here.
All right. Moving on to public comments on agenda items. I'm a little disorganized here. Speak on agenda items. Charlie Williams? As you come up and speak, we're going to try to limit this to only 3 minutes. So otherwise we'd run out of time and be here way, way late.
Okay, thank you. I'll be very brief. So I'm Charles Williams, 1445 South Euclid. One of the agenda items I was just made aware of tonight is the concern about the speed of traffic sometimes on our street, which is 1400 block South Euclid, just north of the Thornton's gas station. And I heard a comment that some people were only aware of one resident having concerns, and so I just came to reinforce that my family, my wife and I are here to support that. We're also concerned, in discussions with the neighbors, we're also concerned that there's quite a bit of fast-moving traffic, I'd say, as people use Euclid Avenue as sort of a cutoff from Roosevelt. They're going fast on Roosevelt. They continue traveling at high speed as they go on to Euclid. We've had some new neighbors move in with younger children. That sort of increased the concern on our block. So we had an incident in front of our house. We had family members visiting for a graduation party, and there's an incident on page 92 and 93 of the packet from, it's about 2 years ago now, where a fast-moving vehicle took the mirror off the side of a parked car of a relative of ours, my sister-in-law. So that was the incident that directly affected us. We've had some crashes on the street that I think you'll hear about. So I'm here just to reinforce that it's not just one resident's concern, it's a number of residents. I know some of the possible mitigations could be less expensive, more expensive. I was hoping for something as simple as cost-effective as maybe drawing parking lines down the street. I'm pretty sure I could find studies that, right now the street looks wide because it's wide, and I'm told by civil engineers who know better that that encourages higher speeds. Maybe putting a parking line would be cheap to do, and we already have it on Ardmore, we have it on Summit. If we did it on our street, that might be a first step to see if that helps, if there's concerns about cost of other mitigations. And I know that, because of the split, we have unincorporated homes, Villa Park homes, there's some Oakbrook Terrace jurisdiction there. I know can create difficult situations, but yeah, something as simple as a parking lane would be a great first step. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
May I ask him one quick question? Just out of curiosity, does it seem like there's a time, is it after dark that there's more issues with incidents, or is it during the daytime?
I would
Just curiosity.
Yeah, I would say, I don't know, probably rush hour to afternoon commute during the week. Afternoon commute during the week is when I notice it, and I'm not home all the time, but yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, and then we're gonna just move on to John Devens?
John Devens.
Devens, I'm sorry.
It's quite all right. Hi, folks. John Devens, 1505 South Euclid Avenue. I'm the one who facilitated this back in 2016, which my neighbor Kathleen will address some of the traffic studies that were run when former manager Keener, oh, goodness, ran multiple traffic studies which showed the exorbitant rate of speed in our neighborhood. We're at 1505. So I'm going to read you the email that I sent to Harline and Cazone. Okay? 8:07, 2 minutes. Like to set up a meeting this week to discuss the extreme danger posed to my family, property, and neighborhood. Tonight, March 8th, 2025, for the third time. Yes, you're reading that correctly. The third time, a car coming out of Thornton crashed into one of our cars. Take that all in for a second. Anybody on the board have anybody crash 3 times into their car in front of their house? Anybody? The answer is no. Okay? 2017, drunk driver crashed into my mailbox. This is in addition. And flipped onto my lawn. Okay? With kids out in front. 2023, drunk driver crashed into my car and totaled it. 2025, driver crashed into a car in front of my house, totaled it, and took off. I had 2 cars totaled. Enough is enough. I do not want to hear about Villa Park, Oakbrook Terrace, the splits. That just doesn't exist. At the end of my property to the line at where former GFS is, that's all Villa Park. That is all Villa Park. So there's no issue with putting up a cul-de-sac, Jersey barriers, things of that nature that will mitigate this happening. And I know Officer Revis, now village manager, Revis saying he loves Villa Park and, his door's always open. I've been coming to the doors and nothing has been done. Nothing. So if anybody thinks that it is normal to have traffic averaging, which Kathleen will address, 40 miles an hour, averaging, down a residential street and 3 crashes in front of my house, please, by all means, speak up. That's what you're here for. You're the Traffic and Safety Committee. I want to pose this. Does anybody find those numbers alarming? Anybody? Show of hands, anybody? One person. No, you don't find, don't find that alarming. So my time is up. I'm going to hand it off to the next. If anybody has any questions, I do find it alarming that one person raised their hand. Two. I find it alarming. So just wait until something happens to you or your loved ones in front of your house. Just wait. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So is that your wife that was that? Okay. You want to go next?
Yes. So, again, thank you for listening to us this evening. I am the one who sent the email today where you have just a fraction of all the pictures that I have on my phone. And you asked what time of day. The mailbox that is completely gone in the photos that you have, that happened at 8 o'clock in the morning in the summer. The fire that you have that's in front of my neighbor's house, that was on a Friday evening. The car crash, the recent one that my husband initiated the email, that is 5:30 on a Saturday afternoon. So when you're asking, is there a time of day where maybe a police presence can be there? The answer is no. From 8 o'clock in the morning, it is only by the grace of God that my neighbor's son wasn't out there, because we would carpool to school every morning. And he would be playing outside. I would pick him up. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. It was hit with such velocity that the bricks were all the way down the end of the block. So we're not looking for a quick solution. Obviously, we don't have one because this has been going on since 2016. Multiple crashes. We have multiple people that travel. We have a girl with Downs who rides her bike every day. We have a woman with a rollator who walks every day. And what was at GFS? There was a sign that said no right turn onto Euclid. That got run over, so there was no sign. And now we have an ABA therapy taking the place of where GFS used to be. So now you're going to have kids with special needs, and you're going to have instructors perhaps walking with the kids. And my first concern was with the kids, and then I thought about it. What do parents do? They rush to get their kids to school. They rush to pick them up. They look for shortcuts. We now have a light on Villa, so everybody that was cutting through on Villa is now cutting through at Euclid. So there's an increased amount of traffic. We have had 2 new homes built and 1 addition. As Charlie, my other neighbor, mentioned, we have more children than we ever had before. You guys have fought us on sidewalks where people can walk calmly. You have fought us on a cul-de-sac. We have gotten pushback on just a barrier. Something needs to be done as we increase the amount of traffic and the amount of pedestrians that will soon be coming here when that ABA therapy place comes. We need to keep everybody safe, as well as the people that live on the block. Thank you.
Okay, and Kathleen? Dariano.
Hi.
And I'm sure this is on the same subject.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And thank you for allowing us all a moment here, and thank you to Commissioner Wagner for actually stopping at my neighbor's house, because I was admittedly a little disappointed that we didn't know anything about these conversations. I particularly am disappointed because I was working with the then village president and village manager Keener, and I'm the reason that the speed humps were put in, largely pushing that issue, obviously with the support. And it would have been nice if somebody would have said, hey, we're talking about this again, because the concern didn't go away, but the energy did. And yes, I'm aware it's multi-jurisdictional, but there is always a path forward. And I do understand the economics of how the village doesn't want to stop and make it difficult for people to get to Thornton's because it is a high taxpayer in the town. But there are engineering solutions for this problem. I don't agree with my neighbors because a bike lane doesn't work unless you want to risk 3 more cars getting taken out or a cyclist. The problem is the street is 66 feet wide. That is not a normal size street. And I think the Mr. Mantels can tell you, is cars will go the speed of a street that they feel comfortable with. That is unusually wide, and it needs to be narrowed in some way, shape, or form. And I would also ask, instead of asking anecdotal feelings of residents, that you go to your 2016 report that the village commissioned. And this was the traffic study that was done on June 15th. And it's not just in the evenings, it shows in the weekends. It shows that cars were clocked during a study going greater than 75 miles an hour down our street. Additionally, 252 cars were going greater than 40 miles an hour, 156 greater than 45, and 108 going greater than 50 miles per hour. This is a problem, and this all predates Villa, because I was told that the Villa light was going to solve the problem. But it's not, because if you look at any of your In Villa Park Facebook pages, the people on Villa are irritated with the backups, and drivers find the easiest spot. You just displace problems over and over and over again. And I do appreciate Commissioner Little's comments about the Vision Zero project, because there are elements in there and talking about reducing fatalities. The other thing, and it's Oakbrook Terrace's jurisdiction that my neighbor might have mentioned in the email, but there was a fatality because people come from In Suites, which is in Villa Park, walk across the frontage road with no sidewalk, was going over to Thornton, and they were killed on November 11th, 2023. And that's because people just start pulling out and they're pressing the gas once they come on the corner, around the corner on Roosevelt Road just to go down the speedway. And so I do appreciate the comments of needing to do something to also use the data from the traffic study. When you rate how the speed is, when they do the professional studies, they look at the 85th percentile, and the 85th percentile was determined to be 39 miles an hour on our street. So that is what people, 85% of the time, they're going 40 miles an hour on a residential street. So again, this is all your data. All I did was mined it, looked at it, read it. Now, there are some solutions, and I also do want to reiterate about the 75 plus miles an hour. So on June 15th, 2016, 9 cars were traveling northbound, that is towards Thornton, at 75 plus miles an hour, and the same thing on July 22nd. So these are just a few anecdotal things. You also, as a village, adopted the Safe Streets or Complete Streets program in 2020. It also talks about things that should not be occurring on our street if you're really adopting these policies and moving them forward. And again, these are all things that you're adopting as a community, and I'm surprised you're not acting on them. But one of the other things that we had talked about, and I did talk about it with the village manager and the then village president, was the fact that we have a 66-foot right-of-way, and there is a way to put a roundabout. There is a way to put a roundabout, and it would be on the north side of the service area. And 66 feet is an allowable amount of space because it's in Washtenaw and Potomac in the city, and at Rockwell and Lemoyne. And by doing something like that, you would then naturally slow the traffic, but allow it to continue to go through. And I would even argue, if you put some soil in there, my neighbor Rose loves to garden. It would make it look very, very pretty. Doesn't stop the traffic from getting to Thornton, won't impact the sales tax revenue, getting to Walgreens, and it really doesn't hurt any of the neighbors either because it's still an open street. But you know what it will do? It'll slow down the traffic. Then, and on top of it, I also encourage you to look at Chicago has a pedestrian plan, tools for safer streets, and there's a whole variety of things. And so also the person who said, because I did read the minutes, that it seems like, the signs work. They don't work. okay? We've just been tolerating it. We have been tolerating it when the speed humps came out. And it's not right, and there will be an accident. And to be clear, the Down syndrome child doesn't live on our block. She actually works at Pete's, and she rides her bike every day. And I have picture after picture after picture that I've sent both when Village Manager Rivas was in some capacity in the police department, of me taking a picture because a car drove around me, sped around me. It is just a drag strip. And it's really, I'm glad, thank you for talking about it again. Again, I really appreciate it. Would have liked to have had more time to come up with a more prepared remarks, but I really think we would welcome an opportunity to work with you to come up with some solutions.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. Kathleen. That's all who signed in for agenda items. Do we have anybody else in the audience that would like to participate in agenda items? Okay, and then we're going to move on to public comments on, and before we do that, I just want to go back in reference to everybody that had comments about Euclid. We will discuss that in further detail later on in our meeting. You're more than welcome to stay for it and listen, okay?
One thing I forgot to address with the size of the streets, and I've actually called the company directly and had no, it's basically blown off by Lou Perry, and I sent you guys the pictures of how much semi-trucks are coming down that street. And we spoke with Mr. Wagner today and said, I understand if there's construction, we've got a lot of new houses going up, which is wonderful for Villa Park. And that's an exception to the rule. But I'm tired of seeing Dr. Pepper trucks and Lampiri trucks and all of these other semis that do not belong on a residential street, not only for safety, not only for aesthetics, but it's not good for your roads either.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to move on to public comments on non-agenda items. Joe? Armour?
I promise to be brief. Joe Amori, 309 East Maple. As you may well know, I serve on the Environmental Concerns Commission with Commissioner Wagner and on its Bike, Pedestrian, and Transit Subcommittee. So I just wanted to be here tonight to inform you guys that, and ladies, that as of May 19th, I have officially become a York Township trustee. And we also have a Villa Park resident, James Kehring. His name is spelled Kehring. He's the new York Township Highway Commissioner. You can reach him through his York email or phone number that's available on the website. He's also given me permission to share his personal cell phone. We're looking forward to working on any shared initiatives, working together with you guys, just so put it out there. I wanted to talk tonight about, one of the things was the Villa Avenue Improvement Project. Originally, when it was first proposed, it was from St. Charles to North Avenue. It's recently been expanded out to Wildwood from North Avenue. I've made the argument in the past that we really need to consider putting protected bike lane alongside in that area where it's a part of the Salt Creek Greenway Trail between Thomas and 2nd Street along the DuPage Materials property. We have brought this up to our chair, Alan Leishman. We are going to take it on as an agenda item and ask that now that the scope of the project has been expanded, we really would like to have a consideration of a protected bike lane on the east side between those two locations that would run alongside DuPage Materials. My main objection, I live on Maple Street. Currently, the way the project was laid out, the trail was to go across Villa twice with the flashing beacons to supposedly protect bicyclists, which it may probably not do. It crosses 4 of our streets. That would be Maple, Beach, Vermont, and Plymouth. You would have to widen the sidewalk, which the possibility of removing mature parkway trees, repositioning fire hydrants, and now taking into consideration with the new Rose paving entrance within the scope of that project, now drivers for that company have to verify over their left shoulder if a bicyclist would be coming down on a northbound trajectory. So the bottom line is that we do believe that this is an opportunity to revisit the project, possibly putting in a protected bike lane on the east side, and by narrowing the center island, there would have to be viewing of measurements and considerations, but not having the bike traffic cross twice is a much safer option for our cyclists and our trail users. Now, that one intersection, that one crossing over the Union Pacific Tract is one of the considerations in the soon-to-be acted on grade separation feasibility study that was expensed by the village. Its presentation has been made by the board. They have yet to take action. But we feel it's highly unlikely that that would be one of the considerations for an underpass to do it appropriately. In my opinion, 40 years on the railroad, you'd have to have it be an Elmhurst project and be it on the east side because of the grade and the separation and not have the conflicts with residentials. So also wanted to bring up quickly the reason I'm dressed in this manner. You may have not had a chance to ask me why I'm wearing about the blue and white sign. Today I was assisting the Metro Safety Police and all their volunteers at the Hanover Park Metro Safety Blitz. They have these annual safety blitzes. They come out every year with a list of stations that they're going to be appearing at. We have been left off the list this year. They can't hit everyone at every time, but I have asked them if they would consider adding us in, and they've agreed to it. So we're going to pick a Wednesday. I'm going to coordinate with the police and fire because our first responders also like to be there with the Metro Police and hand out safety information to our customers at Metro and our residents for just to improve safe behaviors around train. So one of the things about the blue sign, we're promoting that this year. Every crossing on every crossbucks in the whole country has these little blue and white signs. And what they are is it's an identifier to if a pedestrian or a user sees a problem at the crossing, like a broken gate, or perhaps a bicyclist might have caught slipped on a red rail and fell over. Possibly a car might have been broken down. That unique identifier will give you direct access to the train dispatcher, who can radio the engineer and tell them to proceed and prepare to stop at that location. As opposed to calling 911, you need 4 more phone calls from the 911 dispatcher to finally get to the train dispatcher. So this is a much easier way to do it. We've had these little hand fans made up with the DuPage Rail Safety Council, which I'm a board member. That's a generic number on there, but each railroad has their own crossing number and phone number. So warmer weather, I hope you enjoy the hand fans. And lastly, I just wanted to make sure that I left you all a list. Villa Park is highly regarded in its initiatives to restrict access to railroad property unless it's an approved crossing. I've given this list to the commission before, and it's been a couple of years, and those identified locations on your sheets have still not been addressed. They have been I checked them all out today, and they're still unrestricted access. And when you're a locomotive engineer, you're not going to be prepared to act on someone who just pops out of some trees and tries to walk across the tracks. And these paths are well used. You can see how worn they are. So we'd like to ask you to take into consideration having these, if it's private property, then encourage the owners to make the necessary repairs to get these places fixed. Or if it's something that the village can extend their metal fencing to include those locations, it would be highly appreciated. So I thank you for your time. Did you have any questions, as long as I'm here?
Thank you, Joe.
Okay, very good. Thanks.
If anybody in the audience is interested in, I believe Joe has extra ones that he's obviously passing out right now. Okay, moving on to item 6, presentation of Bike, Pedestrian, and Transit Subcommittee. Bob?
Thank you, Chairman Pincos. I'll try and be, in the interest of time, I'll try and be quick here. The Bike, Pedestrian, and Transit Subcommittee did meet on May 22nd. We talked about Bike Month, some of the activities that the subcommittee was involved in. On May 10th, there was a smart cycling class that was held through the Parks and Rec Department. The turnout was not what we hoped for, but there were some no-shows, but hoping that when we do this in the future, we'll have more attendees. On May 21st, there was a rite of silence, and we did get a police escort. This rite of silence commemorates the loss of life of cyclists. And then on May 24th, we had a bike registration event. As I mentioned to now Village Manager Mike Rivas, we did register 27 bikes, but we also registered 2 e-scooters, which was interesting. We did talk about the Illinois Walk and Bike Summit that was held on May 8th and 9th in Springfield. I did attend, and in the interest of time, I don't have much to say about it. It just is very interesting. There were some nice sessions that dealt with bike safety and other technology. One of the commissioners mentioned or brought some information to us from School District 88 Board, and it talked about the issue of safety with regards to students going to Willowbrook, and along Reardon Avenue from Ardmore to Monterey. I guess there's an absence of some sidewalks there, and also along Ardmore Avenue from Roosevelt to Canterbury, which is on the northern end of Brandywine. That's not necessarily within the jurisdiction of Villa Park, but she brought up those issues. There was some discussion about the Villa Avenue Improvement Project, and as Kevin Mantles mentioned, Civil Tech is collecting pedestrian and bicyclist information as part of the Ardmore, Villa Avenue Improvement Project was different. And that really concludes my report.
Thank you, Bob. Moving on, approval of minutes. Consider approval of the pending minutes for the Traffic and Safety Commission's meeting held on May 4th, 2025. Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the May 4th, 2025 minutes.
Okay, anybody second it?
So moved.
I do have a couple corrections.
Okay.
Did we get the date wrong on that?
Yeah, on page 7, in item 8D, they cut off part of Commissioner Cuthbertson's name. It's Cuthbert. And then they also misspelled Communication Specialist Riley Pilar's name. Her name is Pillar. And just another small correction on 9A. I don't know what line that is. The Thornton's project would affect area. Oak Brook Terrace was not interested in, they left out the word in. That's the only corrections I have.
Okay, so do we have to ask her to amend this first?
It doesn't essentially doesn't change the minutes, it's just a correction.
Corrections to the minutes?
Yes.
Okay. So, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any nays? Okay, passes. Going to old business, item number 902, stop signs at Elm and Princeton.
Chairperson Pincus?
Yes.
Commissioners received separate from their packet this evening a memo outlining the traffic study that was conducted at that intersection. I apologize, this was not finished in time to be inserted in the packet. There's also a lot here to digest, so I don't think, given the other items on the agenda tonight, that it merits a read-through now, but perhaps it makes sense for commissioners to take this home, digest it. Feel free to send me questions or comments on it before the next meeting, and then perhaps it can receive further discussion at the commission's July meeting. And then a quick note on the, well, if I may jump to 903. As commissioners may or may not recall, one of the criteria for stop sign or for all-way stop control warrant is sight distance. The intersection of Division and Princeton has a number of obstructions due to privately owned landscaping. And so our community development team is working to get that addressed, at which point we can reevaluate for that criteria and then provide response.
Any questions? Okay, yes, Bob?
I'm sorry, I did not get in the distribution. I didn't get a copy of it, or maybe it went, oh, there we go, okay.
The one that says memo.
This one?
Yep.
Great, thank you.
I'd like to move that we table this discussion until next month. I don't remember the words I'm supposed to use.
So in tabling, you're talking about item 902 and item 903.
Yeah, so that commissioners have an opportunity to look over the packet presented.
I'll second that.
Okay.
There's Little and Carlton.
Carl. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, moving on to item number 906, crosswalks across Ardmore Avenue near Lufkin Pool, or Lufkin Park. Used to be a pool. So used to saying that.
Chairperson
Yes.
Pincus? I had noted to commissioners that study occurred, I don't recall now if it was last week or the week prior, but obviously, as I'm sure everyone noted, it rained a good part of that week. In addition, those traffic cameras unfortunately had a tree branch fall during the study, blocking the view on one of them. So we'll be putting those back, well, not us, but the consultant will be putting those back out and recapturing all of that information, hopefully next week. So I don't know that we'll have it compiled and analyzed in time for the July meeting, but we will be going back and trying to get better data. I recognize school won't be in session anymore, but hopefully the weather is at least much better than it was the week that was cameraed initially, and we will capture some park use by pedestrians and cyclists.
Okay.
Do we know when those are going up? I'm so sorry.
Scheduled for next week, as of right now. Weather permitting, though, I would
I have a
caution.
question.
Vicki, yes, you're
Oh, sorry, I
first.
just had a question. Well, Kevin, is that now going to be part of, like, because we're redoing Ardmore all the way down to Roosevelt, is that going to be part of that study as well?
Yeah, actually, so there's some overlap between what the village has to do in terms of data collection and studies in the entire Ardmore corridor to meet federal requirements, since the project's receiving federal funding. We did increase the scope of those efforts beyond what's required to capture additional information in the Lufkin Park corridor, with the representation that once that data is collected and analyzed, once our consultant has identified, the best location for a pedestrian crosswalk across Ardmore, the village would proceed with constructing that in advance of the project that is years away at this point.
So currently, where the sidewalk currently is, the crosswalk is now at Jackson and Ardmore.
The only actual crosswalks, yes, north side of Jackson Ardmore intersection, and at Reardon is the next one.
Okay. So are they looking to specifically say that we need one, or are they looking to find out if we do need one?
I don't think that there's any question that additional crosswalks, actual crosswalks, are needed in the corridor. Staff's hesitation was to put one in without first evaluating what might, be considerations for safety and sight distance and things of that nature.
So when they're doing the study, are they not only looking at how many people are crossing there, or are they looking at people where their persons are crossing at Jackson and Ardmore, as well as Reardon and Ardmore, as well as the traffic?
Yeah, it's capturing all modes of transportation,
Okay.
motor vehicle, pedestrian, and bicycle.
Okay,
And scooters and everything else that is on the agenda, so.
okay, thank you.
Bob?
Yeah, given the fact that we're still waiting for information, I'd like to make a motion to set this aside or table this one, item 906.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Wait,
Sorry, who was the second? Little? Okay. Okay.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 908, speeding, traffic safety issues on Madison between Villa and Riverside.
Chairperson Pincos?
Yes.
My action item from the last meeting was simply to find out whether or not the radar cameras that had been put up record data. Unfortunately, the answer is no, they do not. So the signs that were initially posted, reading out people's speeds, unfortunately, we have no deliverable to bring back from that.
Question, did we used to have those?
I was informed that the speed radar signs used to be able to provide that data, but they are not capable of that anymore.
Okay.
I apologize, I don't have any more information than that.
Any other comments? And yes, Beth?
So are we going to request traffic volume, traffic speed study, or?
I was waiting the commission's discussion tonight to, take next steps on that.
Do we have anything that would end up?
We do not at this time.
What tools do we have in our toolbox to address speeding on not through streets in Villa Park? What can we do?
In terms of easy fixes, I really unfortunately don't have any answers to that.
In terms of any fixes, what are we allowed to do to make surface streets safer? I mean, this is a local road. It's not a minor arterial. It's certainly not a major arterial. This is just a local community road. What tools do we have available to make streets safer when people say, my street feels unsafe, it's hard for me to use, people speed here? I believe them when they say people speed here. If we collect data that says, yeah, people do speed, which is likely because our speed cameras found that every other place that we put speed cameras up, people speed on surface streets, what tools do we have available? What can we do?
From an engineering standpoint, there are a lot of hurdles that must be crossed in order to put any sort of physical changes in place. And that's what we've talked about with Ardmore, we've talked about with other locations, is that unfortunately there are not a lot of easy physical changes to the traffic control devices that could be made.
Can we put down paint on streets without doing extensive engineering?
That is a traffic control calming measure that is available, yes.
Is it fairly simple to be able to do that? Like, do we have to do a full-scale traffic study that costs thousands of dollars?
No,
Or can
for striping, I would say not.
can we just paint in parking lanes for, I mean, can we have some kind of standard that we set where, I mean, if we just do the speed cameras, if we just do the same thing that we did for the warrant study, we will find that the average speed is above the set speed limit, right? Everybody is driving between 25 and 30 miles an hour. That's the peak of the bell curve with it going down. And there will be some outliers that are going at excessively high rates of speed, but like everybody's going above 25. So, like, do we need to prove that? And then can we go in and paint the parking lanes so at least the street feels narrower? I don't know, like, just saying like, well, it's the same standard as every other street in Villa Park, and yes, everybody speeds, and oh well, that's really too bad, doesn't feel responsible.
I understand that. I can have a discussion with my superiors. Obviously, the decision to stripe for that purpose is not my call. But I'd be happy to have, or at least have, or I think it might be helpful to facilitate that conversation with commissioners as well.
Yes, Bob.
So we mentioned engineering. There's also enforcement, and I think there have been some police efforts at enforcement along along Madison, that stretch of Madison. And then there's education. And to their credit, the residents along that stretch of Madison, there's a whole cluster of drive like your kids, play here signs. So I don't know what signs do. I mean, if they, some people suggest they may help, some people suggest they make residents feel better, I don't know. But yeah, so engineering, education, and education are pretty much the thing, enforcement, yeah, are the things we can do.
I'm not disagreeing with you on that, so I'm gonna look over to the officer. Are you here for us tonight, or just?
Yes.
Okay, so can we ask if you could, maybe kind of patrol that and see what happens over there and see what your results are from?
Which location?
We're talking about, Madison, between Villa and Riverside.
Are we talking northbound or southbound or both?
East-west.
Sorry, east-west,
That's
sorry, my
e-
fault.
Yeah, I would
East-west.
assume,
Sorry, I know.
I would suggest that they cover Riverside as well, because that's a part of it. To get to that point on Madison, you have to go either on Riverside or from Villa, Oakland, or Monterey. But Riverside is the last street, and it's the one closest to Route 83, which might be the entry point for people trying to skip somewhere else to get over to some other arterial street or something like that.
They'll drive down, they'll take either Highland or Washington off of 83, skip down it, because they go down my street as well, I'm right there. And then they go to Madison to get to Villa, to get into Roosevelt or anywhere else, or to bypass the cluster that comes out of Oak Brook.
yes,
Do we know if there's going to be any more enforcement on, I mean, just, because not only just on Madison, Euclid, that's another one. How about how about here at Elm and Division? I mean, here we've got traffic reports of 15 cars in excess of 75 miles an hour on Division. This is on our study here. 11 cars between 70 to 74 miles an hour. This is, I think, issuing tickets and citations for speeders, especially when COVID hit, is really diminished. And people are getting farther and farther away from following the rules of the road and paying attention and drive like you're supposed to. I mean, here, the numbers are here. They're huge on this traffic report. I mean, a little tiny side street, they're in excess of 75 miles an hour. 21 cars in excess of 75 miles an hour on Division. Or, I'm sorry, Elm. 1 block away from Ardmore. We need a lot more enforcement.
I'll take a look at it and run it by my bosses in the building. But typically what we end up doing is putting in these extra patrols in the area. We also check out on their computers, showing that they're there. And then you'll see the time frame when they're there and citations when they're issued. And you can do that all over town. But, we can isolate it to certain areas to see what
Yeah.
we're seeing.
Because it seems like every meeting we come to, there's somebody new here. They're using my street as a drag street. They're all flying down my street. There's kids in my street. Well, I have the same problem on the street I live in for the past 65 years in Villa Park. It's a through street. You know, I've got kids. I raise kids. I've got one that's blind. My cars have been hammered I don't know how many times in my driveway. Cars wrapping around my tree in the front of my house. And my cars sit out on the street too. And this is going on like wildfire, and it just seems like it's increasing at a rocket ship pace, and people are, we get away with it. Nobody's giving tickets anymore, and you can see it. I mean, we can change the road until we're blue in the face, but we need to control the people turning the steering wheel. The person behind this in control of the car.
It's the people that the problem, not the cars.
Yeah, it's the people, and You know, unfortunately, I spent a little time down by Euclid. I know I asked about the, about time of day, because I was there after our last meeting when they brought it up, and that street is really dark. I was just curious if there was difference. I mean, that street is pitch black, but it's all times during the day. I understand that. I do.
Yeah, and just for reference from the study, that at 5 PM, the time between cars was 20 seconds to a top of it. So they're not really going fast.
There's a lot of them, high volume. Okay.
Okay, so if you could bring that up with your chief and see what we can, maybe even have some type of plan or something, or if we can come back, because obviously, it is obviously on all our streets right now, and I know you guys are limited staff in reference to resources that you can end up doing too. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Bob?
I'd like to ask us to collect data for, traffic speed and traffic volume on that stretch of Madison so that we have something to go on.
I have a question.
So you're going to check with,
Collecting the data is no problem at all. As some of the other commissioners have noted, doing things about that afterwards is what can be a little bit more challenging.
okay, thank you. Vicki?
I'm just curious, and basically when we're doing these studies with historical data as well, looking at it, because do we find that every time we put up something new, for instance, the stoplight over at Villa, now all of a sudden we find out that now they're going more down Euclid, or more they're going down Summit, or they're going to Ardmore? Is it every time that we're doing something new, we start seeing a different pattern? Is there also a different pattern because, and just for instance, because you're going down 83, you're not in the area, you're not familiar with the area, and all of a sudden you got your, map on and it's telling you how to get to your next destination. Oh, by the way, you can cut through these streets over through here and it gets you there 5 minutes sooner, rather than if you stay on 83, go to 22nd Street. Instead, you know what, you can now cruise down and go take Villa to Roosevelt to get to Pete's Market or wherever you're going. I mean, do we see patterns in this respect with the new technology that's out there for people to get to one place to another? Because it seems like, for instance, they're saying when they put up this, everything is supposed to be corrected when they put it up on Villa. Well, no, maybe did it increase? Did it decrease? How did it get there? I mean, how are we looking at this? And then we have to see the fact that, look at our whole entire village plan, when we look at all the new developments that are coming up, how are we going to see what's the traffic going to be like once that gets into place? I know it's on the agenda later on with the union study and so forth, because, they sit there and say, I believe one intersection, I want to say off the top of my head, is at 95%, and they said that was okay. But we're at 95% capacity at that specific intersection. What is it going to be when we actually increase that without taking into effect if we do another development in somewhere closer to the area? How are we looking at this in the future? We can rectify something today, but how is that going to look like in the future if we do that, and where is it going to affect next? So, I mean, even going down Ardmore now, it's like people can go down, they could probably go down Elm to get to Addison to cut. Don't know. How do we look at that? How can we find the historical data and see how the traffic has transformed?
I don't have an answer for that, but I will tell you that it basically just moves to different areas, and there is no real control to that.
Right, so I mean, I'm not saying we shouldn't do that or put a cul-de-sac on Euclid or anything like that. I'm not saying that. But if we do that, where's going to be the next problem?
The traffic pattern predated the stoplight at Villa as well as the median down.
No, you're
I mean,
correct.
I was
We
just using it as
understand
an example. Just saying.
Traffic pattern, all of it predated.
That's kind of what I was addressing when I said we're going to have a new school, which means students, which means parents, which means automobiles. And where are they gonna exit from? They're gonna exit onto Summit.
Right.
They're gonna exit onto Euclid, because they can't go left onto Roosevelt anymore.
Right.
So,
I mean, we also have now the rec center that's get put into place. Now we're going to have the union across from that. Then we now will look and see how the actual planned building across from the train station, how will that be addressed? The previous plan had them exiting, only going northbound on Ardmore. Well, where does that push them? That pushes them, if they want to get to South Villa Park, that pushes them to Vermont, and they're going to either go to Addison or Villa.
Yes, you are correct. It's actually going to be pushed. You're just going to work, hopefully it's not
So I think.
drastic in reference to
Right.
dangerous.
So what I'm looking at is saying we not only have to address this for today, we need to address this as we move forward. It
That's
shouldn't be
what the
just.
studies are supposed to be doing in reference to that, and where possibilities that traffic will end up going. So,
Okay, thanks.
there is no real sound, definite solution to it, if that's what you're looking
Right.
for.
No, and I'm just saying, it's like we need to understand what has historically been happening. If we did this, what happened? If we did X, what happened? In previous instances.
You're
when
looking
we
for
did
the
something.
best solution that you can, but it's going to be the best solution. It's not going to be the available solution, or the ideal solution is the word I'm looking for. Any more comments?
I'm very stuck on this. Residents come in, they say people are speeding on their street. It's true. We can put up cameras and collect that data, but we all know that it's true. We know that the average speed that a motor vehicle is going on any surface street in Villa Park is going to be above the posted speed limit of 25 miles per hour. All of the data that we've collected and looked at so far since I've started on this commission holds that up, that it's people go over the posted speed limit of 25 miles per hour. Some people severely in excess of that, but the average speed that people are going is between 25 and 30, which is above the posted speed limit. Do we have remediation that we can give to any street that comes in here? Because any resident who comes in can say, people are speeding on my street. And it will be true if we put up the traffic cameras and watch, we will find that that is what is occurring. Do we have anything we can do for them? Or is it just, it's engineered to the standards that we engineer it to, and oh well, it's too bad that people speed down your street.
Well, the only thing I can answer to that is basically, in the last several years, speeding throughout the whole Chicagoland area is very high, okay? If you want to just take a quick example in reference to the famous tollway I-90, if you are not going 90 miles an hour, you are going to be run over. And they can't control that. Okay? But if you look at all the streets, and I've driven North Avenue, and I've been at many places that I stop at a stoplight, and the car behind me just continues on through, you can't control it. As the officer said, it's the people that we got to try to get control, and that is very difficult to do. And it's happening all over, not just in Villa Park, not just over in Elmhurst or Lombard. It's everywhere.
It's national.
It's national.
It's national.
It's national. So, I mean, the way I look at it is, I think you need to have more officers out there on the road to basically help solve the problem. But we don't have that.
So our commission's official strategy is that we throw our hands up in the air and say,
No, I
there's
didn't
nothing
say-
we can do?
I didn't say that. I'm just saying in reference to, yes, there's speed. I'm going to tell you what, go down my street, and it is one of the worst streets in here because we actually have a drop in the street that's about 4 inches right across the whole thing. And they basically still go through that, and I will tell you, they're going at least 35 when they go across that. Because my street is similar to Euclid, it's about 1,400 feet long without an intersection. So typical of a driver, they're going to look at that and they're going to put their foot to the metal and they're going to go to whatever they think they can get away with. So, yes, Bob?
Fairly recently, I found online with the DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference, they have a whole document about traffic calming engineering solutions. It's a few years old, but it might be helpful to share with the commission. It mentions a lot of different traffic calming. I don't know, roundabout or whatever is certainly one of one of the traffic calming tools.
Yes.
But it's on their website. I'd be happy to send it to you and Kevin and the rest of the commission.
And if we remember, we had a lady from CMAP that came about maybe a year ago, maybe somewhere in that time frame,
Maybe October? give or
maybe
take.
in October, and also gave us information and what possibly can be done, okay? And yes, there are possibilities, and I don't know how that stands, but I will say I have not seen DuPage County Highway Department put a roundabout in yet.
I personally would like to be able to just say, like, this is our rubber stamp thing. If you are concerned about speeding on your low traffic volume, typical surface street, not a through street, not an arterial street, anywhere in Villa Park, this is what we can do for you right away quickly, that we can we can paint in the parking stripe, we can paint in something, we can add, flex posts to the beginning of the parking lane. I want to have a solution that if you have a concern about speeding on your street, that we have something that we can do right away. And I don't know what we're allowed to do. I'm just a person who lives here. I'm not a traffic engineer. I don't know what we're allowed to do, but I want to have a solution that we can hand out like candy. Anybody who wants it.
Every street's not the same. I mean, you have to look at each individual.
Right.
No,
I appreciate Ms. Little and Ms. Glasscamp are trying to be proactive and look at the future when you mentioned where, like, the Hillside Strangler is now the something else Strangler. You know, everything has to go somewhere. But you're talking about that there were some solutions that DuPage has, but they haven't put in a roundabout, but those are some of the solutions. When my kids start driving, I tell them, you are only 50% of the equation, because everybody else is driving. So your 50% has to be 100%, because you can't control everyone, right?
okay.
So I'm asking you, we cannot control how people are driving. So you can't, as Ms. Little said, well, that's just the way it is nationwide. Well, you know what? Doctors didn't wash their hands before they performed surgery, and we figured it out.
Okay.
Let's figure something out that isn't just saying, well, I got my car crashed, and I got my car crashed. Yeah,
Thank you.
There's a difference.
Thank you. We understand that, okay? The audience has to listen to what we have to say, and then you can talk to us afterwards if you like, but please listen. We'll go from there. Thank you.
Listening in agreement with both ladies.
Thank you.
So, in reference to number 908, speeding and traffic and safety issues on Madison between Villa and Riverside, if we put up speed cameras and identify that cars are speeding, what remediation can we offer in reference to number 908?
It's a good question. Okay, you can put payment markings down, and I don't know if that's gonna solve the solution or even come close to it. Okay? I know you were talking about parking lanes, which I do not know where you're coming from on that. I don't know what you're trying to say, parking lanes. And-
Well, instead of having just the big wide street with no markings on it at all, if we paint the white stripe that indicates where the parking lanes are located. The way that it's done in the historic downtown or on the Villa Avenue Business District, they have white lines indicating where parking is located.
I think that's a little bit
If I may
different.
Okay,
interject here.
yes, Carl.
In traffic calming, that is one of the base places to start. I mean, I think we could do that, we could recommend that, and so that would be the action we can take, a recommendation. We could also do a count. We have a counter still, don't we? Traffic counters. These are steps. It has to be done in steps. As Vicki said, you know, we do something, what's going to be the after effect? So it has to be done. There is no overnight solution. I know this has gone on a long time.
Yeah, 10 years.
Okay, I know. I've been here for 25 years. I've been here, okay? I know about it, I've talked to people on Euclid before, okay?
Okay, all right.
All of us live here. I've never talked to you once. I've lived there 20 years.
Well, I have talked
20
to...
years, sir.
And I didn't talk to everybody.
We all have children. And what's
Keep it
going to happen
inside.
is one of these kids are going to get killed, and you guys are going to be in a lot of
You brought
trouble.
it up that you.
Thank you.
Just brought it up that you talked to people on Euclid.
I
I've
have
been there
talked.
21 years, never seen them.
I didn't talk to people at their doorstep. I talked to people here, I talked to some people at their businesses, okay?
Thank you, thank you.
No, no,
We're
no.
going to cut this
People in
off
town.
right there.
Yeah.
Okay, if you would please, let us continue. I only said that so that you knew I had an awareness of the situation.
Okay. All right.
So in reference to Wildwood, if we get traffic counts that say that people are speeding, can we put down pavement markings to indicate where the parking lane is, thereby visually narrowing the street? Is that something? I'm sorry. On Madison, 908, speeding on Madison between Villa and Riverside. I misspoke. My apologies. If we get traffic counts that indicate that cars are speeding, which is what the speed cameras will indicate, can we put down, at a minimum, can we start by putting down pavement markings indicating where the parking lane is, thereby visually narrowing the roadway? Can we do that?
So my response to that would be, is it permissible? Yes. I think that it would be helpful for the commission to, once that data is available, to formally review it and make a formal recommendation.
Great. I would love to do that. Can we make that happen?
The collection, again, the collection is the simplest part of the entire equation.
Great.
So
I
that will
love it
always
so
already
much.
move forward.
And then-
I will bring that back to the commission when that's completed.
Thank you so much, Kevin. And then do we want to put this aside until the next meeting?
Well, as far as making a count and the enforcement, additional enforcement, I would say we could make a recommendation to get the counters out there right away.
If you'd like, we don't necessarily need a formal recommendation for that, but,
I've already asked for it.
Yeah.
oh, sorry, I missed that. Was there a motion?
So, yeah, we're
I
going to
didn't
put
make a
some
motion, I
counters
just
out
asked
there.
for it. I mean,
The
All right,
if you want a
great.
motion, I'll make
End
a
up,
motion.
going through and see if they can put extra patrol out there to see what's happening. And,
I move
Kevin's
that we put this aside until the next meeting then.
and Kevin is
We have to
going
look at the
to end
study.
up seeing what other possibilities that is at our disposal.
Yeah, I think it might be helpful. I think Commissioner Wagner, you noted, certainly Commissioner Little, you've noted that there are a toolbox of traffic calming measures available out there. If that's something that the commission would like to recommend to staff formally, then I think that's going to go a much longer way than me trying to have those conversations outside of a formal recommendation.
Okay, so wait, what does that look like? Talk to me like I'm 5. What do we need to say to make things move forward in a formal manner?
That would be, similar to making a formal vote or a formal vote on a recommendation for an ordinance. It would just be instead a formal vote by the commission to recommend that staff blah, blah, blah. If it's install traffic, I guess pavement markings for traffic calming measures, it would be that.
Sure, but I think that some of the commissioners have indicated they first want preliminary data on the speed that cars are going on this particular street.
Sure. And I have to leave that to the commission as to what steps are desired before taking formal action on something.
Well, I mean, I can understand that because my concern would be is like, so anybody who made a comment or called us and said, hey, they're speeding down my street, if that was in the toolbox that we had and we said automatically we're just going to put lines on your streets, I mean, I think we would have lines on every single street in Villa Park. And then everybody would just get used to it and then they would just overcome it because it's just like kind of seeing it and you would just automatically it would just be the same thing every day and you would just get used to it and you would start speeding again anyways. It didn't matter. So I think we have to be very careful in where we do it and how we do it so that it makes an impact because otherwise it just becomes everyday normal.
Okay,
And we don't
so
want to do that.
what we are asking then, do we agree as a committee here to ask for a traffic count on the street?
We'll go ahead and do it regardless.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask?
Yes, yes, yeah.
How many of these counters do
Yeah,
we have?
So one thing to note, the counters that were used for the two Elm Street, I'm sorry, the two Princeton Avenue studies are magnetic counters. We've got 8 of those, so it's enough for doing one intersection or I guess technically 4 corridors. Within the last few months, we did actually end up acquiring one of the cameras that I'm sure commissioners saw on Ardmore Avenue. So we now do have the ability to pick up the vehicular, pedestrian, and bicycle counts on a corridor and a single section basis. We can't do the study that the consultants did in Ardmore Avenue corridor. We're not quite there yet. Those things are not cheap. But we at least have the capability to do a little bit more data collection than we did as of 2 months ago.
I was just kind of wondering, what do we need to do to get on the list? Because I would also like to see the data from Euclid. Because we did 2016, we've got data since then, they've revised and rebuilt Roosevelt Road.
On that.
I would just like to see both to compare.
Sure. Do you mind if I, quick question. I apologize profusely. I was unaware of a former study that was prepared. If I get you my contact information, could I get a copy of that, please? Okay.
And then, so
All right.
Kevin, a real quick question. So regarding the studies that we're doing, so if they're done in-house, is that just done by our in-house people? So then how long does that take? Is that part of somebody's actual regular duties to actually evaluate that data?
No, it's not, I would say it's not we don't have a traffic study person. Not even close.
Not a certified qualified one.
But in terms of the actual effort is, so everything is in the cloud now, everything is AI.
Yeah, okay.
These cameras are all processed by artificial intelligence, and then you get back the information that they spit out. Obviously, it requires review and QC by a living, breathing human person. But we certainly have the ability to at least evaluate the data that comes back. As to making recommendations based on that data, that is not something that's typically, at least at the higher levels, is within the capabilities of the staff we have.
And then is the raw data also available if anybody wants it?
We can make it available. I know that question had already come up in regard to the Ardmore traffic counts, and when that information is available, the plan is to make it publicly available as well.
Okay, thank you.
So if I understand that right, that's what we're going to do with Madison at the moment? Okay.
That's my understanding as well.
Okay. All right. So do we have a motion to,
I'd like to make a motion to table or set aside item 908.
and do we have a second?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay. Moving on to item 909, reverse parking on Wildwood from south to north. Illinois, from the south side to the north side, from Illinois to Euclid on Wildwood. And that also, I'm going to tie that in with 910, traffic and parking on Wildwood east of Euclid on Villa. Any comments? Yes.
Commissioner Pincus, I did walk Wildwood from Illinois to Euclid, and I rang many doors, but I only spoke to 5 residents. And basically, I asked the question, do you see an issue between having parking on the south side as it is now, or would you rather see it on the north side? And most residents didn't care. They acknowledged the fact that it was changed sometime back in possibly 2017, and they thought that it was in response to all the folks that were going to Moore Brewing when they would release whatever their new beer or whatever, and the line of people would be sometimes is from Villa to Illinois, if you can believe that. I did from one resident, their driveway is on Wildwood, but their address is on Illinois. They said when they back out, if there are cars parked, it might be, they have to be especially careful. The remarks that I heard from a lot of folks was that During the weekday, there's cars are hardly there, but on the weekend, there are, maybe visitors or whatever, there are cars parked there. So, I did speak with, a former police officer, James McNamara, who was on the force for 25 years, and he lives on Illinois, right where it turns, it becomes Wildwood. And, he didn't notice, it was not a big issue to him. I think there may be 3 or 4 driveways that are on Wildwood.
Yes.
And I only was able to talk to two people. And it was not a major concern to them, but, except when they have guests, I'm digressing a little bit, but 2 people mentioned to me that at one point, there was a stop sign at Euclid and Wildwood. Yeah. That's right. I wasn't aware of it, but 2 people mentioned it to me, so.
I don't remember it either.
Yeah. I did not talk to the resident who brought this issue to us, because obviously I knew what she would say.
Okay, any other comments? Anybody else gone through there?
One of her concerns was the vegetation on the
Yes.
south side of the street. Are we keeping up with that?
It seemed like the village had mowed. I didn't see any branches that were encroaching onto the,
Every time I went through there, it was, well,
it seemed pretty,
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of vegetation, but none of it was encroaching onto the,
Out
It's
the
a
street.
good, what,
Yeah.
10, 15 feet from the street, where the vegetation is, for the most part? I mean, if it's not.
a good 8 to 10 feet.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. But I did go through it this weekend one more time. I went through it several times, but this weekend, since there was no more, every time I've gone through there on a weekend, I've never ran across cars. Now, I haven't hit it between like maybe 11 and 2, but it's either in the mornings or in the evenings. However, I did notice that vegetation needs to be looked at the moment now. There's not a lot, but yes.
It's that time of year.
It's that time of the year. So I did talk to Kevin about see if we can relay that information onto the Park District. Am I correct?
The Parks Department, but yes, they've been requested to trim back that vegetation again.
Okay, so we are keeping up with that. Yes, Vicki?
So is there any reason why we would not, because it looks like in this particular, I'm assuming this is the ordinance that put it on the south side, included in the packet? It doesn't really say why they moved it to the south side.
What page is that, Vicki?
It is 75, starts on 75. But it has a lot of different streets on here. It moved a lot of different subsection, no parking zones in chapter 14 municipal code. Has a lot of different streets that are mentioned.
In Kevin's previous statements, I believe you came up with that we never found a real
found it.
reason of what happened with that. I believe that was back 2 managers ago.
That's correct. It was in March of 2018. Obviously, we found the ordinance. There was a mention of a presentation given at the board meeting, but unfortunately, we were not able to track down any information related to that presentation.
So if we wanted to move the parking back to the north side in that specific section of Wildwood, would we just need to call for an amendment to this particular ordinance?
Kevin would be the best to answer that, but I do have a couple more comments in reference to that.
Asking.
Okay. First off, I don't think we should do anything with it at the moment until we see what develops out of the development over there off of Villa and Wildwood, and see how that's all going to be handled. And the second thing is I still believe that having no parking on the north side gives easier access for any emergency vehicles and stuff to get to the houses instead of working around parked cars. So that's my 2 cents on it, but I do not think we should do any changing at the moment until we see what develops with that development happening at Villa and Wildwood.
So then, could I make a motion that we table this until we find out what's happening in Wild at the Union? for the
Motion by
development?
Flaskamp,
Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Karen Timmerman.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any nays? Okay. And that, while we're tabling that, we're tabling both,
And then 10.
yeah.
We're tabling both what?
I'm sorry.
909 and
Yeah,
910.
909 and 910. Because I grouped that together as we discussed. However, before we move on, Kevin, was there some movement developing with that development?
I think you might be jumping ahead to item 912 here, but yes, it is still
Oh,
moving
okay.
forward. It's in the, I guess it's past the planning stages technically, but they have not applied for permit as of yet. I had mentioned, I guess we can go ahead and cover 912 just very briefly. I had mentioned to commissioners that we were awaiting submittal of a revised traffic impact study for that proposed development. We finally did receive it within the last, I think, 2 weeks, after waiting for it for roughly 14 to 15 months. It is currently under review.
That's the whole development is under review?
The traffic impact study specifically. It's already gone through planning and zoning and all the steps to get to that point.
So does it have to come here now?
Does it have to come here? No. The traffic impact study is a requirement of the permitting process. We're bringing it forward to the commission for review, yes.
Okay.
There's nothing in the ordinance that requires it to come through traffic and safety. And I think we've talked about that before.
Okay.
Any more comments about it?
Okay. So we will get the revised traffic impact study.
Yeah, I apologize. Since I jumped items here, I should not have done that. But yes, the revised study will be coming to traffic and safety once staff is reviewed and is comfortable with the findings of it, which we're not there yet.
So, are we backing up now?
I think if we skip 9/11, there's going to be some issues, so.
Yeah, no, and it was my fault, because I forgot that we had that down there, and I was just thinking about the development over there, because that's what we were talking about, the parking, and how it's already set up for bay parking over there, so, from the existing, so, okay. All right, moving on to 9/11, traffic crashes on South Euclid, north of Roosevelt Road.
I think the good people want a roundabout. Can we look into that? Can we put in a roundabout? Are we allowed to do that? I'd love to do that.
Yeah, I think, I guess I don't know if the conversation's been had yet or not, but staff is on board with doing, I would say, not necessarily closing off the street and creating a dead end. Certainly something. And what we need to now determine is what that something is going to be. I would say that certainly we are on board with the idea of doing something more extensive than striping pavement markings or pavement parking lines along the sides of the street. I think there was a discussion at the prior meeting about a speed table. That was one of the potential things that was raised. Staff has also discussed internally the possibility of basically narrowing the street at the very south end to try and both channel traffic and reduce speeds. If you've drawn up a sketch regarding a roundabout, that would save us some time. I'd like to see a copy of that too, if you don't mind. And I think it just comes down to the conversation to be had here with commissioners as to what that might be. I also would like an opportunity to review that study as well, please. And again, I apologize for not knowing that had been completed already. That's obviously a large part of the puzzle. But if I could get my hands on that, then staff can take a look at that, and we may well have a lot of our work already done for us, so.
Say something? Would there be a possibility of, I know it's just a small little sliver of what could, but someone had mentioned about making the street feel like it's narrower, just even just stripe it or something. I know it's not gonna help a lot, it'd help a little bit, but to give it the narrowing effect for right now, is that something we could do?
Let me take that up
to
the
be,
chain and ask
positive
if,
right at this moment?
yeah, let me
as
take
we
that up and
review
ask if that's something that,
I would also like to see that roundabout thing too.
The officers had also mentioned on multiple occasions, even the Jersey barriers like they have east of Castle would stop. You know, you have the 3 Jerseys, and then traffic can exit out from Euclid. So,
Actually, I'll probably, after the meeting, I may go over there and take a look at those.
yeah, it's
But
cool.
even
It's
just-
It's just east, well, you know what I'm talking
Castle Road.
about.
Castle.
The street east
Yeah.
of Castle has Jersey barriers.
Yeah.
That's all.
What I'm asking, Kevin, is the striping, because one of the things I noticed, because after the last meeting, we brought it up, I went over there, that street at nighttime is pitch black. If we had stripes, it would reflect, at least at nighttime, might give it a little bit of a narrowing effect. Be something we could do at a moment's notice. Scott. I wasn't bringing up the,
No, something else.
Okay.
Okay. He's bringing up something else in reference to it, so.
I feel less concerned with a moment's notice than I do with something that is going to have a long-term effect. So while striping may be able to be done fairly rapidly, I would like this commission to make a recommendation to have a more permanent fix. If we can't do that today because we've got to look at the study and we've got to look at the plans that this community member has drawn up for us, I understand, but I think that we should be moving towards doing something significant rather than just putting down more paint.
I wasn't saying dismiss looking at something more significant. I was looking for something right now that we can do to be proactive today as we continue to look for a larger solution.
I appreciate it.
But you know what? Scrap the stripes if you don't like the idea. Go ahead and
I
scrap it.
love paint. We can put paint everywhere and
Like, there's not even anything to divide, you know, north and south, there's nothing. I mean, there's not even
No lane
dot
markers
lines
in
and,
the middle.
thank you, lane markers in the middle even, we don't have. It's just wide open.
So, this is Oprah Ferris.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yes.
Some time ago in way south, Downers Grove, I don't even remember the name of the street. I want to say it's Fairmont. I could be wrong, but it's south of 63rd. They had a street that was particularly wide. It was a residential street, and they put a center median in. Now, I don't know if that's the solution here. It may not, but it's just at that time, at that street, it seemed to help. Again, may not be the ideal solution here, but there's other things that we could look into aside from just a roundabout or striping that are more permanent. And I said this a long time ago on this commission, that we need to be a little bit more open about there's other ways to fix solutions. Now, they're longer term, they're not gonna happen overnight, but historically, we haven't been proactive on these certain things, about looking at other ideas. And instead of just fixating on a roundabout, which may or may not work, or, dedicated parking stalls or lanes, which may or may not work, there's a lot that we could consider. And we shouldn't just be tunnel vision on one thing.
Agreed. Okay. Yes, Bob?
So I've heard, several solutions: parking lines, Jersey barriers, cul-de-sac, roundabout, some sort of median, concrete median. I'd like to know, I think we need to do something innovative and to try and calm traffic here. I'd like to know, not precisely, but the relative cost of those solutions, so that we can make an evaluation, to say, okay, this is what it's gonna cost us to put this roundabout in, or this is what it's gonna cost for a cul-de-sac, or,
Jersey barriers.
but I want to be very clear. I think that speeds over 40 miles per hour are alarming. I may not have raised my hand like I was in the classroom, but I do believe that's alarming.
Yes.
So I just want to say that.
Okay.
You know, this could be an opportunity also with the,
Afterwards, thank you. Okay, the other situation is, on that block, we have two other jurisdictions. Our area is roughly 650 feet long. Okay, that is the only thing that we could do, is look at and proceed on that situation. The other thing we could do, and I believe Kevin has already tried to, and obviously changing the guards of York Township Highway Department, is to see if we can talk to them in reference to, if we come up with an idea. I don't know how all that jurisdiction happens and what happens with, I've never ran across a situation of one block and it has 3 jurisdictions. So you have to kind of see which is what everybody's going to end up doing with those jurisdictions. And I don't know who has, if anybody has a total control over that. That I don't know. But Kevin is trying to look into that.
I've already emailed Trustee Amore asking for the personal cell phone number of New York Township Highway Commissioner James Carey. So, per his offer.
Right. So, in reference to, as we look at this, we are essentially, as a board, we are only looking at a 650-foot section of roadway, which is basically in the middle. Because Oak Brook Terrace is on the south side, and the north side is York Township. So, yes, we are investigating that already, and yes, once we can get together with them a little bit, come across some ideas in reference to it, and proceed forward. That's about what we can do at the moment for tonight. Any other comments? I just want everybody to understand what that is. So when you're looking at that, you're putting cul-de-sac up. I don't know how that works with the 2 agencies, because you just cut off the other 2 agencies that are on that block and that street. So, yes.
I would just also mention that one of the residents suggested a pork chop at the entrance to Euclid, as to kind of restrict traffic or to limit some traffic. I also noticed there is a there's a very faded no left-hand turn sign out of that parking lot where GFS used to be. It might be as a good first step to put up a fresh no left-hand turn sign there.
Okay. And that's the other thing, good point that you're bringing up. I understand it was brought up by the residents. There's obviously some type of school or something going into the old GFS food scenario. Is that a private school, or is that being run by one of our private schools?
Private school for
Private school.
autistic children.
Okay. And therefore, that is our jurisdiction for planning and zoning? I'm asking Kevin.
It would be if they required zoning relief. I don't know if that's the case or not.
So what I'd like to do is find out what is happening with that, because that's the first I've heard of it as of today. So I'd like to know how that is proceeding with the village and where that is going.
I've reached out to ask for additional information on that as well. I will report back what I hear.
So with all of that, and yes, probably one of the most ideal and best ways of doing something is yes, a small little roundabout, if you want to say, or basically putting a little circle in there in reference to making them just weave a little bit, and that's it. But
You mean like a pork chop?
it's not a pork chop, it's actually,
Like a traffic circle thing. It's
Yeah.
smaller than a roundabout.
Yeah.
All over on the southwest side of Chicago.
We have to do.
yeah, it's very small. It's probably about the most 18 feet in diameter. So it just, you just can't go down the street at,
You have to slow down to make the curve.
yeah, so.
Can I just add one thing, to add to what you're saying about the complications? There also is a need to be able to have the Oak Brook Terrace Fire Protection District come in, because on top of it, some of the houses are Villa Park, and some are Oak Brook Terrace. So whatever device you put there, whether it's that permanent median strip which you're talking about, which then really narrows it and causes you other traffic problems, you have to have it not so high so that an emergency vehicle can go over it. And they also get gas.
No, I'm not thinking about a speed bump as they put it in a speed table.
For access, for emergency. You mentioned a median.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, yes.
It's just another complicating factor that
It
we
is.
have to be mindful.
Yes. So, with all those open ends at the moment, we need to have some,
I apologize, was there a motion on the table for pavement markings? Or was it just suggested as a?
It was just suggested.
Okay.
yes.
I have just one question. It may or may not be germane to this, but since a school is going in at the old GFS, do either Euclid or Summit become school zones? Do we have any control over that?
It says ABA therapy.
Yeah.
So it's not, is it a school or a therapy?
I've been
it's
trying
more
to
of a
figure it
therapy.
out.
I'm not
I
sure
think
it's
it's
a
more of a therapy.
that would be
but I think
relating-
we might have
These
daycare
are
in
the
there.
information we need to have, find out what's going on, so.
Yeah, it
Till
would be,
then.
it would be ideal if we could
Yeah.
figure out what their quote unquote, I mean, wrong phrase, but what are they zoned as, basically? Or, again, wrong phrase, but you know what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, and that's the information I just asked Kevin.
Yeah.
If we can find that out. So, we need all of that in front of us in order to make a decision. And the most crucial is obviously in reference to working amongst the other two agencies, because they're all part of that road. Emergency situations, I don't know how that's all gonna fall in, but we need to be talking amongst all three parties, and hopefully all three parties will cooperate. And go from there. And then if one's not, we have to find out what the results are. If we do something, what the impact would be against us or anything, so.
I guess just a quick note, Chairperson Pincos, as Kathleen noted, I guess it's actually four. As we have, I think you said, I think it's York Township Fire Protection District.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Oak Brook Terrace Fire Protection.
Oh, there is an Oak Brook Terrace, separate one.
I believe- Didn't you say that a few of the houses were Oak Brook Terrace over there?
Yeah, the unincorporated.
They are.
is covered by Oak Brook Terrace Fire Protection.
Okay, so York,
Incorporated is Villa Park.
York does not cover, York Township Fire Protection does not cover that.
No, they don't.
It's
They're
a- okay,
centered
okay.
by Montini. The road is York Township, like you're saying.
Sure, sure.
So it's great to look at, you know where Oak Brook Terrace is, you know where York Township is.
So,
Oh, they got a
we might
Ouija
as well
board
find
and
out
call
who
for fire?
owns, who handles York Township.
As
fire.
far as, well, as mentioned, it sounds like it's Oak Brook Terrace Fire Protection District.
Does that mean they cover our town too?
No.
I'm gonna say we are.
That's easy enough to figure out.
Yeah,
That information is
okay.
publicly
So we're gonna
available.
find all that information out. So there's a bunch to find out before anything can start moving forward. So, okay?
All right, given that we're information seeking for the next little bit, can we motion to set this aside until our next meeting?
Are you
I am
motioning?
motioning to set this aside until our next meeting.
We have a
Second
second.
motion.
Okay.
Little and Wagner.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
13.
Yeah. okay?
I think we have to formally deal with 12. So can we set aside, please, item number 912 until our next meeting too?
Motion
I'm
from Little.
motioning.
Seconded.
Okay,
Aaron
all in
Summerlin.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, moving on. Item 913, traffic patterns and speeding incidents at Harvard and
Study done
Washington.
Is the study done? Do we have a study on this one too?
I think we were looking into that, weren't we?
Yeah,
Or you
there
know
is
what?
a diagram provided in the commission's packet tonight that identifies crash reports from the last 5 years. I apologize, I need to find that page. We have not done any traffic counts or anything of that nature at this location as of yet.
However, we do feel traffic also could be affected by that area because of the construction on Madison.
I did note that yes, obviously Washington is currently the posted detour route for the closed corridor on Madison Street right now, so that's certainly resulting in some additional traffic volume.
So I think we have that accident reports in our packet here.
Crash.
Crash
Reports.
incident, okay. Anyways, I'm looking for somebody to possibly, I think we should review that, and I think we also will want to look into it once all the construction gets done over there, because that is a detour pattern, and bring it up in a future meeting. So I'm looking for somebody to motion to table this until next
I
meeting.
motion that we table it.
Flaskamp, second was Carl.
Carl. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay. We do have one new business. It's item 914 in our package here, electric scooters. And I understand the chief of police at one of the last meetings of the board had a great explanation of this e-scooter situation. Bob, I don't know if you have any information more on this?
I supplied a little pamphlet that the city of Chicago prepared to educate e-scooter drivers. I gave Kevin it's an agreement between the city of Chicago and whoever the provider is for the rental e-scooters in the city that has some information. I did watch the discussion and among the village board whether we should regulate, and I guess if you don't regulate, if you don't pass an ordinance, they're actually not permitted. That's my understanding. And
What's not permitted?
they're not permitted. The e-scooters are not permitted
In your town?
in your town.
Anywhere on street or?
Right, that's correct. Exactly.
Okay.
That's the way the state law is written, from my understanding. And I watched the discussion, and there were two trustees who are not in favor of allowing e-scooters. So, I mentioned we did a registration on the Prairie Path, and there are plenty of e-scooters around town. I mean, we tried to, we registered them. In fact, what I mean by registered, the police department took a picture, the description, and we put a little serial number on it in case it's stolen. That doesn't mean we were saying, oh, that's good, you have an e-scooter, but there's a lot of them. And my fear is if we don't regulate them, how do we, the police will be enforcing a lot of, giving tickets or whatever. I think the law says you have to be 18 years or older, but that's unusual because you can get a driver's license or a permit
16.
when you're 16. So how does that work? I don't know. My thought is I'm in favor of us crafting an ordinance that, encourages, maybe we need to mandate that people register their scooters. We try and educate people about how to ride your bicycle safely. What are we doing for e-scooters? Because they can go a lot faster. Some can go 27, 30 miles an hour. Not to say a bike can't do that, but that's probably a very athletic bike rider. My thought is I'm in favor of regulating them.
That's just,
Wait, before you go any further on that, I'm sorry. In our package, in the last 4 page,
114 through 117.
yeah,
113.
there is, I guess, an ordinance that has been drafted by the village board for us to look at, and Kevin, can you?
Yeah, the draft ordinance in the packet, I believe, was drafted by the village attorney at the request of either the board or the police department or both. And it was presented on and discussed at the May 19th village board meeting.
Okay. And the village board has asked us to take a look at it and make comments?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. And do they have a specific timetable of getting back to them?
I apologize, I do not know that answer.
Okay. So, yes?
Put 'em on sidewalk.
There wasn't a specific timetable posted. It is on our new business and we'll continue on our board discussions. It's still part of discussion, hasn't gone very kind of vote. What we did as a board, vote to have Melissa draft this resolution along with, at that time,
Okay, so, with that, what I'm asking everybody to do right now, because I have not read it, I learned about this a couple days ago and had not had a chance to look at this. Yes, Bob, I think something needs to be done, okay? It's interesting in reference to what's happening. But everybody, if they can review that and then come back with, and come across any other information, but come back and we'll have comments on it at our next meeting. Yes, Bob?
So,
I'm sorry.
with respect to like e-bikes, there is like 3 classifications for e-bikes. I tried to find something similar. I did find where there may be 10 classifications for e-scooters. I don't know if that's official or not, or if that's an industry standard for e-scooters or not, but they vary depending on the power of the motor, and the speed they can attain. Some, I mentioned it to now village manager Rivas, I was interested in test driving one, and you have to go into the city and to test drive an e-scooter. You can buy them at Best Buy. They have a variety of e-scooters. Some come equipped with headlights and brake lights. Some do not. And for a bicycle, by state law, you're supposed to have a headlamp and you're supposed to have at least a red reflector. I don't know if that's required here in this particular ordinance, but I certainly think it's something we should require, a headlamp and a rear reflector at least for an e-scooter.
Well, okay. You have a comment on that, or?
I was just going to note that my understanding is that is already incorporated in the state statute, and by extension is, I think, required therefore to be incorporated in any ordinance that the village passes.
It's reflected in D4.
I don't know, I thought I heard some rumor that Elmhurst has adopted something for e-scooters and e-bicycles, some kind of regulation and ordinances. I would be more than happy to approach Elmhurst to see if there is and what it is, and maybe we could duplicate.
Has done that.
It's just something that
Lombard has.
Lombard has.
Lombard
yes.
has.
Lombard has?
at this point, Elmhurst is not allowing that.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's why it was. And I have talked to an officer over in Lombard, just at the parade that they had, because he almost got run over by the scooter. And I asked them what they're doing with it right now, and at the moment, they're not sure how to handle it because the person that was driving the scooter probably was 12 years old. And how that happens, because you're talking about 18 is what's being asked. I'm going to say a lot of the kids out there are riding motorized scooters.
Young.
So I don't know if this ordinance has to tie in with what the state ordinance is, and if the state has an age requirement on it, this has to have an age requirement on it, and then I would assume that the police department will have more problems in reference to enforcing it, along with everything else that they got. So, just an FYI.
There's one question. So let's just say, for instance, we do pass this and we do allow e-scooters throughout our town or whatever, and one of the areas they say that they can actually have them is on the trails, so technically Prairie Path or the Great Western Trail. So for instance, like if we allow them, but like Elmhurst does not, so if they're on the Prairie Path and they go into Elmhurst,
Well,
curious, what would be, I don't know, what would be,
I-
I don't know if you could answer that, the police officer could answer that. I mean, what would be, could they do that, or what would be the,
Yeah, it's no different than changing the speed limit.
right, okay,
Town to town, they would just have to enforce their crimes
in their town, so forth, okay, so I was just curious. Thank you.
And I don't know if, and Kevin, you can help me on this, do we have any jurisdiction over any of the Prairie Path or the Great Western, since that's by DuPage County?
I don't know if DuPage County has adopted anything pertaining to their rights of way, such as the trails. I do believe that there was an exemption from here.
They do?
They do.
yes. Like we have part of there's a park or something in Elmhurst, or right off the path on the other side of 83.
By Salt Creek there.
And that's actually something that just came up earlier in the week, last week. There was a group of kids on these whatever you want to call them, and they were fleeing Elmhurst into Villa Park. It's a crime that we assumed was happening in Elmhurst, but because it's on the path, which is like DuPage County, it ends up being Villa Park's issue. So we
Okay.
have to deal with it.
So you have to enforce stuff on the path in reference to it? Okay.
Even though it's on the other side of 83.
But isn't that part of our jurisdiction over there? Isn't
Yeah,
that?
that's what
Yeah. I know that it kind of goes in and out and all the others, yeah. Okay. All right, so, I think we should just take a look at this. Maybe if you, Kevin, can you, send out to us, the state version of it? And then we can kind of compare it and go from there. I just don't think we have enough knowledge right now to make anything worthwhile statement.
I do want to say, as a proponent of micromobility, people being able to use active transit and use smaller ways of transporting themselves than, loading people up into a whole SUV just to rent a Jewel, I very much appreciate that the Villa Park proposed ordinance treats scooters essentially the same as we treat bicycles. There are limits that the state is putting on us, and we can't go past the limits that the state has, like the age limit is a state requirement. This ordinance does include having a front headlight and at least a rear, I think a rear lamp too for e-scooters. But I very much appreciate that this is essentially treating scooters as much as possible like bicycles, to encourage the use of micromobility devices, because anytime somebody's on a scooter instead of an SUV, it's cheaper for our roads, there's less wear and tear, it increases the safety of other road users who are not inside a motor vehicle. I think this is good stuff.
Okay, thank you. All right, do we have, yes, Bob?
I just want to dovetail on what Commissioner Little said, referencing micromobility. There are more than just e-scooters that would be considered micromobility vehicles. There are e-unicycles there are other types of electric
There are scooters for indoor.
micromobility devices that can move rather quickly. So I think it's an evolving thing. We may hear more about other forms of micromobility that may come to us.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion to, this is added on already, so we don't have to add it on.
Correct.
Correct. So do I have a motion to table this until our next meeting?
Motion made.
Second?
Second.
So moved.
Second?
Ed.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, moving on. Commissioners' comments. Okay, Ed, we're gonna start on your side and move right on down the roll here.
In the interest of time, I'll refrain from comments tonight. Thank you.
Carl?
I will not be able to attend our next meeting. I feel there's a lot of stuff on here. I don't know if other people, because of the holiday, might not be able to be here. I would question if we could move the meeting to another date.
No, unfortunately, I can respond to that. As we discussed previously, changing the meeting date must be on the agenda and receive formal action, and that has to be on the agenda prior to tonight.
Okay. That's all I have.
So the topic had come up earlier this year.
Yes, I remember.
I believe the commission elected not to entertain adding it as a formal discussion. What I would maybe suggest is, going forward, it might be advantageous for the commission to formalize the meeting dates for the following calendar year prior to the end of the upcoming, the end of this year.
Yes.
That's not something the commission has done in the past. It's just always been established that it's the first Tuesday of every month, but I think, given that this is a recurring conversation, it would be beneficial to everybody to get that meeting schedule set in stone with formal action prior to the end of this year.
So basically, around October, we need to look in advance of what's going on, and if it's election day or whatever else it is, and then propose it, and then move it forward for approvals by the boards and the management.
I find that having the meeting the first Tuesday of the month conflicts with the holidays, several of the holidays, at least three.
And elections.
And elections.
We can check with that, but that was what we were given, and I don't know, way back, I asked about trying to move something, and there was
Well, we
a,
used to meet on the second Tuesday, and we changed that not that long ago. And I find that, you know, with the holidays and stuff, it creates a problem for me especially, but,
No.
and with her being an election judge,
no, I understand. We'll see what we can do about maybe moving it, or make it the second Tuesday, or if there's a conflict with another meeting, I don't know, but we'll have to check. Okay. Yes, Karen?
Nope, nothing.
Jack? Nothing. Bob?
I just want to say kudos to Public Works for moving the Drive Like Your Kids Play Here signs to the community rec building. They're featured prominently there, and thanks to Kevin and whoever else did that. Just really quickly, this is an issue that I recently saw that came up. K5 Asphalt, which is essentially on Route 83, but their property goes all the way to Villa. They created an entrance on 2nd Street, right at the entrance to the Greenway Trail, right where it comes off.
Yes.
And from the discussion I saw on social media is nobody knows how they got permission to do that. That is terribly unsafe. For those huge trucks to be able to go right where a trail goes through, where children and, you know, bicyclists and other people are coming out, I would love to know how they were able to do that. Because from what I understand, nobody in the county, the township, Elmhurst or Villa Park knows how K5 was able to do that. And I'd love to get some answers on that.
That's a good question, because I did notice that a couple weekends ago when, well, they had it all dug out and getting ready to, but I don't.
There is a signalized entrance for them on Route 83. So somehow they decided they needed another entrance.
And is that, by the way, I don't know, is that our jurisdiction? That's
I
Elmhurst,
think
right?
that's unincorporated.
It's unincorporated York Township.
Unincorporated York Township. So, that's something you could bring up to, when we get our telephone number to the highway commissioner.
Yeah. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but my understanding is that the powers that be in Villa Park have already reached out to have that conversation with York Township Highway Commission. Those conversations are also initiated with DuPage County. We do know that DuPage County issued a permit.
Really?
For that. We are still trying to get answers, as you are hoping for, as to what process they went through, what level of review did it receive. Obviously, Villa Park staff is in agreement that is a dangerous and troubling turn of events. So, but as I had mentioned, this is unincorporated York Township, and they may not have been required by law to consult with Villa Park for what they're doing over there. But until we know what they're doing and how they got approval for it, it remains open.
I don't want to belabor the point, but the county was involved in creating that trail.
Yes.
It's at cross purposes with each other. Yeah.
I cannot disagree.
Anything else? Nope. Tricia?
No.
Vicki?
Just wanted to be clear, so if you're saying that we wanted to move a meeting, how far in advance do we have to do it?
So it has to receive formal action, and in order for it to receive formal action, it has to be on the agenda at a prior meeting. So let's say 4th of July week, for example, there would have needed to be an item on the agenda tonight for the commission to take formal action on changing the schedule for that meeting.
So how do I add an item to the agenda for next month?
So items can be added by 2 or more commissioners, or I would just suggest that at this point, as I mentioned, we discuss somewhere around October a formal schedule for next year.
And I'm just gonna throw this out at the moment. Looking at the calendar in front of me, I believe Labor Day weekend is September 1st. Second would be the,
Election.
our, what?
Oh, sorry. The second would be our first meeting, sorry.
Be a meeting. Do we feel that we are gonna be away for vacations, and do we wanna bring that up for a move, see if we can move it, because then we'll add it to our next agenda.
Can we add another date to that agenda as well? Can we add, November 4th for the election? And so we're looking at those 2 dates at our next meeting?
Okay.
Cool.
What election?
I don't
There's
know.
only one
election
election
on-
this year.
There's no election.
Well, it says election day on my calendar.
That's normally, it's every other year that November is election.
I was just
Every,
saying, move a
every
meeting.
even year is one election, every odd year is 2 elections.
Got it. All right.
Okay.
Then we don't have to move that one.
So, we'll just put the September 2nd on there.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay,
That's all I have.
with that,
Motion to adjourn?
no.
Jay's got something to say.
I'm gonna just keep you here for an extra 10 minutes.
Vicky, it's all your fault.
I'll be real slow about this, but no, I have no comments in reference to it. Yeah, I do have one comment. Our police department doesn't get recognized for a lot of stuff that happens. And just recently by our house, in the middle of the night, I have good dogs. And boy, did they go nuts at about 2:30 in the morning. Our police department was somehow tracking and something, or they were going after somebody, and they were there going through the yards and actually knocking on our neighbor's door to make sure she was safe and everything else. And I just think they do a lot behind the scenes that nobody ever sees, because by the time I got out there, they didn't walk, they were running around, okay? And they just jumped back into the police cars and they took off. And we did find out a little bit later that evening when I talked to our neighbor, they were hunting somebody down. I don't know who it was, but they actually came back just to make sure he wasn't somewhere else, hiding somewhere and stuff like that. But they do really, I commend them for what, with the little bit of the police force that we have, the number of men they have on the street, they were all over it and working on it in the middle of the night, and that, nobody would have known it, so. But, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so that is my comment. I don't think we officially have a board member part of our group.
Yep.
Okay, but if you would like to say something, I will.
I look forward, I'm glad I came here today. There's a lot on the agenda, your agenda that I look forward to bringing to the board anyway. And that's all I'd like to say. I was interested mainly in the e-scooter discussion. For me, that's an important discussion. Mainly because I saw a bunch of kids just double up on an e-scooter, drive down Harrison Street yesterday. Who were younger, and they were in the middle of the street, and it's dangerous. I just don't want to see any child have an accident. They had no helmet, nothing, and were going pretty fast down that street while I was talking to my neighbor. So I do know that the police department is overwhelmed, but I will ask that you keep an eye, because as you know, we love our children in Villa Park, and we want to make sure that they're safe. And though it might be difficult to have the conversation or take their scooter, it might be necessary to do so that we keep them safe, and also keep our police officers and everyone else safe. If what you say is right, they're escaping from one town to another on these things. That's not something acceptable as well. So I would say that. So I'm glad this ordinance is coming out. I agree with Tricia. It's good to have a mobility, but it's mainly for adults, and there's a reason for that. We want to keep our children safe. They can ride the bike. They have the strength to ride a regular scooter. There's a lot of things children can do. I wish I was more mobile at that time myself. Now it's really healthy, and I think maybe we don't do everything on an electric mechanism for kids, and that we understand that they have the energy to spend in better ways and use a regular bike to get where they need to get. So that's what I would say. But for adults, I understand that micromobility is very, very necessary and good for the environment, certainly, and much else.
Thank you. Okay, Kevin, do you have any additional words?
Like Carl, I will probably not be here next month, so I will try and find a replacement as well as provide all the deliverables that are pending.
Okay. With that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Yes, seconded.
Last camp, Karen Timmerman.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? And therefore, we are ending at 10:07 tonight. Thank you.
I'm always so